two individuals. First of all, Karen has an excused absence. She's not going to be here tonight. She's going to watch it at home. And I'll make sure she gets her, or maybe we can take it to the office.
Okay.
We'll take care of the folks for us.
Perfect, perfect, and then I'll let her know where it is.
Okay.
My voice is a little scratchy, a bit of a cold. I don't know if it's cold or allergies. I'm thinking whatever it is, it's taking me down a step.
Is Penny coming?
Penny is going to be here. She will be here an hour late.
Hopefully we'll be done.
Ever the optimist.
Boy has to have dreams.
And yes, and Colin will be about 15 to 20 minutes late. He's picking up a person, a child, something. So I think we're good. We still have a quorum, so I think so. And Colin did say he saw nothing in the search stuff that he had any further cat because of any since then. Okay, let's start then with adoption of the agenda. Anybody have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Or deletions? Yes, please.
I'd like to add the budget calendar as item 4A, well, let's see, 6A4.
Continuing business, okay. IB, okay. Because we did make another little change. Do we have a handout of that? Or?
I do not, but I would be happy to, I would like to speak to it tonight, and I'd be happy to email it out tomorrow.
I'm not going to say. I have it in the minutes. Okay. All right, let's look at the minutes from, we're a little behind, but we're caught up now. So March and April. Yes, ma'am.
Did you want to, did someone want to move to adopt the agenda as amended?
Thank you for keeping us on track. Since there are no objections, we're going to adopt the agenda.
Thank you.
By the way, hello Linda, haven't seen you in a while.
Well, I was sick. I'm still getting over it.
Okay, well,
The baby.
please don't say it. All right, let's look at the minutes. Did anyone have any concerns, questions, corrections to the minutes of 3:20 or of 4:17? No, okay. Then without objection, we will approve those also. All right, let's begin with the capital request.
The first one we have on the docket tonight is
What page, please?
page 22. What we have here is a request from Jessica for funds coming out of UDR for hazardous trees. Within the package, you will see all of her history and supporting documents. Sudden Valley, we have a rating system on how the trees are. There's 28 trees right now that are ranked hazardous. This request is for 17 of them. And as you go through the package for, quite a few pages, about 25 pages to be exact, you will see all the supporting documentation for this. It was bid out. We got 2 bids returned, and we did them on trees only so that we could break it out if there was better bids, better competition across this. So that's what we have done. We will be using the Sending Tree Service and Earthwork Tree Service to complete the work. We are asking for $16,990.90, which includes tax and 10% contingency. That also will leave $8,023.84 in the account in case something severe comes up.
None of this money is out of your funds that you were already designated to have for hazardous tree removal.
That is above and beyond, yes.
Thank you.
Say that again.
We have, there's an X amount of money, set aside each year for hazardous trees.
20,000.
20. So we have spent roughly 12 of that already. This is for additional monies to take care of these trees.
They do not need to ask for permission to expend the 20,000.
No, I got it, I
But I
read
knew-
that,
okay.
I see what you were saying now, I'm sorry,
It's good, I just wanted to clarify that.
This is a UDR request, that
Yes,
would
this
be
is-
in addition to the monies that we had already asked.
And that, we're also leaving $8,000 in that account, of the original 20 in case something out of the ordinary happens. We have the money right there.
I mean, like another storm,
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah.
Mention that.
We actually, already have additional trees that, that are being ID'd and evaluated. We have 11 that have been ID'd and evaluated and 9 that are been notified pending evaluation. So there are 20 more trees.
For next year.
Well, for
Yes.
this year,
Yes,
for
they're
this
depending on
year,
that, okay.
but
Depending on-
only $8,000 more dollars.
Yeah, so that's probably not gonna cut it, so to speak. Okay, so, what's, help remind me historically what we've been spending on hazardous trees?
Oh, 2015, you didn't track anything yet, you spent $12,148. 16 was 15,349. 17 was 28,289. 18 was the first year you tracked trees. There was 32 of them removed, and it was $59,054.
Okay, which was why you had put in a request for the budget to be increased this year. Okay.
And year to date, we have 8 trees that we have removed, $11,976.
Okay, that's pretty close to 12. Yeah, okay. All right, what other questions do we have?
How many of these are gonna be left? So you go after your 8 pluses, right? Alright. So how many 8 pluses do you have left after this? 4? And so we have 11 remaining hazard rank trees.
I think it's in the back.
It's in the
It's
back.
back.
I have it in the back.
46?
So the question really I'm going to is what should we expect after this to get rid of the hazard rank trees for the association that members have called in to say, this is a hazard to my home?
We have 20 more trees potentially.
That's what she was just saying.
Okay.
That we know of right now. That's the other
That
issue.
members have called in and identified that there is a hazard to their home.
A potential hazard without being reviewed yet, yes.
Okay, so there's 20 more trees potentially this year.
Potentially, yes.
Average cost of a tree,
1447.
hmm?
1447.
So another 30,000.
So it's possible that we can have $30,000 more to take out 8 pluses.
Yep.
Maintaining the association, so is it still your position that the association should wipe out 8 plus?
Yes. Get rid of them. There are imminent dangers, and it's something we need to address. If we've been put on notice.
So for those watching that don't understand, 8 is referring to the amount of danger
Yes.
or the risk
The risk-
associated to that particular tree.
Correct, that is a risk assessment based off of the
And then-
guideline that has been put in place.
1 to 12.
1 to 12, yes.
Okay, with 12 being the worst.
So,
And that information is in the packet, correct? You put in the
It
full
is.
hazard.
It is included
Yeah.
in the packet
Right.
on pages 162 through 177, which is in
Yeah.
your binder,
Yeah, in the
the budget
binder.
binder. Yeah.
Right. I
So-
just wanted to make sure that as we're having a discussion, when people are listening, they understand what they need.
Yeah.
What they're hearing.
Yes, which is why I wanted to make sure that people know too, that the full process for taking care of that is also in the paperwork tonight if they are watching
Right.
this.
And this is a very, detailed procedure. It isn't willy-nilly. We go through a lot of careful evaluation before we remove the tree, because obviously once you take it down, it can't be replaced. But also we want to make sure that the most dangerous ones are taken first, so. Okay.
Do you need to get a permit from county for these? To take down?
once it gets into the 12 range, no, the county wants to know what's going on, and they can have a conversation with us. But Jessica, as I remember, still goes off and gets her permits for all the trees to take them out. I also just went through all the lists. It's like you're everywhere in the association. There is no focus of gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, gate 4, gate 5. You're
It
everywhere.
is everywhere, it's across the entire community.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer.
On the, just on the forms on here, it has a
Yeah, I
box
have the
where if
box.
it's permitted or required or received, yeah.
You're doing a good job
She is.
keeping track of your hazards.
Yes, she is.
I was impressed with the level of paperwork that's in there.
I always, I'm glad she was able to determine canopy meaning.
Yes.
Because I can never, how do you do that without a drone or getting up on an airplane? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll say this, the county certainly keeps track of the canopy for monitoring if people are taking trees out without permission. So it's important for her to keep track of what is this doing to the canopy in Southern Valley.
You good? I entertain a motion.
I would move that the request for UDR funds for hazardous tree removal be approved as written, and note that we expect an additional amount of funds in 2019 for UDR to take out the balance of trees later in this year.
Okay, you can do that.
Second.
Seconded by Colin. Okay, now that we've had a thorough discussion, are there any other discussion items now that we have a motion on the floor? All right, those in favor of this? Okay, now,
Nice bid package. She broke it out, and you're breaking out your awards to best value, not just giving them all to the average.
Correct. Yep. If you look on the back of the request,
They're looking at it.
yeah, there's a complete breakdown of everything. We had 4 companies come out. This is the only 2 that got anything back, so they broke it down tree by tree by tree or section for us to get us the best.
My compliment to you and your staff, Joe. To be candid, I would have looked at the summary and said who had the best overall value to the association and awarded. You're actually breaking them off. And so you're cherry picking the best values and you're awarding that way, which is a lot more work for your staff, but it's better value for the association. My compliments to you and your staff.
Thank you.
I think it's a good job too, and my concern would have been that if you cherry pick that, they would say, well, if we're not doing them all, we're gonna charge you more, but they did not, so that's good, that's really good. Awesome, tell Jessica thank you for all the people. All right, moving on. What was that?
I'm gonna let Jennifer do this one. This one is coming from Area Z. The reason I'm letting Jennifer do this, she has more knowledge. She's been involved with it longer than I have, and knows more of the costs and the insides of Area Z and financing.
So as you know, Area Z has hydrocarbon contamination there. And we are at the very, very tail end of getting this all wrapped up and getting our official letter of no further action from the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the last piece. So I know that we thought we would have this letter in December. And unfortunately, there were some additional steps that needed to be taken before we're able to get this letter that we were only made aware of in the last 4 weeks. And so, unfortunately, those additional steps have some additional cost. And we think it's going to be about $8,000 more to bring this to a close, get the final letter of no further action. That includes costs from Anchor to have them finish up their end of it. The letter's already been drafted and reviewed by the Environmental Protection Agency, and then it also includes some time for the EPA to do their own evaluation. We have to pay them for their time to bill us.
That's amazing.
Not only do you pay taxes, you pay them to do the work that your tax dollars are at work.
We have extra steps we need you to take, and oh, by the way.
Here's your invoice.
So I'm greatly disheartened that they did not come.
Hang on a second.
Should
I'd
finish?
kind of like to have a motion this time before
Oh.
we discuss. How would that be?
Or were you done explaining?
Oh, I would
Okay.
just like to request $8,000.
Okay.
Please.
So, and then we'll go right to you. So, do we have, can I have a motion about this particular one?
Not from me.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the finance committee approve and recommend to the board that they authorize an additional $8,000 allocation, bringing the new total authorized amount to $186,290 from the UDR account for the Area Z mitigation.
That's outrageous. Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, go ahead, Mitch.
Thank you for holding me to the process.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm greatly disheartened that our assurances from the prime contractor who managed Anchor failed to deliver. And so it's a torturous route. I acknowledge that. What is it? First off, question, is PNW overseeing this project now?
No, they are not.
There.
So Wilson is still overseeing the project for
Correct.
Anchor?
They're so deep into it.
Okay. Have they given you specific deliverables that they do not have funding for that demand the other $8,000?
Yes, it was brought up, the information given to us, it was given to the association prior that there would be possible back-end charges. And the association at that point either neglected nor didn't pass it.
Back-end charges, let us describe to everyone what a back-end charge is. A secondary or tertiary or even quadrant fourth environmental or regulatory agency can weigh in at any time they want and put costs on a job to say, without my permission, you can't move forward. Is that correct?
You are exactly right.
All right. And so you have experienced now multiple other governmental agencies that have weighed in that previously had never weighed in and are now exacting a toll from us to say, pay me or I don't approve it. Is that what we're looking at?
We're looking at some of that, yes. What it is the process in place. Everybody thought we would get this letter in February at the latest.
Yeah.
There was a couple other steps that had to go through that had to be, doesn't get approved here at this level, it gets approved at Seattle, downstate.
Anyone can say no.
Yep. Anyone can say no until I have a letter in hand at any given moment.
So are they clearly defined? Here's my concern, Joe. We know the work is done.
Yes.
All the sampling is done. The sampling passed. The samples were taken. The analysis is complete. This is a regulatory nightmare that we have to live with until we get this letter. Has anyone asked if they are expecting a fifth regulatory agency to weigh in, which could happen?
The next step right now is a 30-day review for
Okay.
residents to chime in.
Department of Ecology, 30-day review?
Correct.
Yep, DOC, or DOE. DOC
Right.
is where we're at right now. We have county permitting, so the county is okay with everything. The last little bit of the step is DOE flexing the last little bit of muscles they have to drag the process out. Which is something that is a normal, I guess, from what I found out, again, is a normal process that goes through here.
Hold on a second, we don't have a quorum.
Well,
That
we're
was your
not
issue,
voting,
isn't it?
it's okay. Let's go ahead with the discussion, we'll catch Tony up.
I'll defer
Yeah.
to.
I just want to say, previous life, hazardous waste background for 20 years. I want to say this is not uncommon with DOE. I've seen this happen to customers. It's horrible. I've walked a lot of customers through this outrage. I've felt it for myself, for my customers, especially when it comes to the delisting process, which it looks like that's the specific letter that we're waiting for is delisting.
Yes.
This is the back end work.
It is, and I'm not.
We're being held hostage.
I'm not saying it's okay by any means. I am, but what I am saying is I have seen this happen in so many contamination cases, more so in hazardous waste contamination than hydrocarbon types of contamination. But this is not uncommon. I've seen this happen to cities. I've seen it happen to counties. I've seen it happen to parks. It is horrible. I think it's one of the nastier parts of the business, and it's not uncommon for somebody to swoop in at the end from what I've seen in the past.
We know that a regulator is loath, you and I both know, that a regulator is loath to give final approval, because then they're held accountable, which is why they have not yet settled on the Love Canal from the 1970s. All right, and we are nowhere near that level of contamination. You feel comfortable that you're looking at the last hit?
I feel
And I know that it's out of your control.
Yeah, it's out of my control. With the meetings that Jennifer and I have had with Anchor, Wilson, they say go ahead and start the project because it's just a formality. I am a little bit more leery on that because in our meeting I said
That's wisdom.
I said in our meeting, if we get coming out of the ground and they sue us to stop, I'm coming after them. Because they're saying, go ahead.
Coming after.
We will go after Anchor and we'll go after Wilson.
Mhm.
For giving us determination. County as well, because county says we can start, even though we don't have a letter from DOE.
County did give that?
And
They have the
I-
permit, yes,
They shifted responsibility then.
yes.
So the responsibility is now on us if we do not get
The responsibility falls on us if we want to go ahead and come out of the ground.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes and no. If the county gave you permission to start your project, did they?
Yeah, they have permit for it.
County is sitting culpable. County is sitting with weight on their shoulders.
I would ask our attorney.
Yeah.
But to counter just a little on that, we'd be sitting with the attorney bills that we would be having to fight to go through that whole process once we did that. DOE has way deeper pockets than we do.
And they have a lot more power than the county.
No question about it.
Yeah.
And I would just like to point out a typo. It says EPA in the background in the second to last sentence, and it should say DOE. I'd like to.
It's DOE, not EPA.
Department of Ecology has
but
control on this.
I'll correct that for the board agenda.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
You feel comfortable? You think that they're there?
I feel that they're there, I just don't like the process that they put us through.
My concern is Wilson and Anchor not being able to predict this. Are they that naive about this process? That they-
Naive is not the right word.
Well, I mean, and they, all right, so inexperienced.
Let me
No.
Put it that
clarify.
way.
We selected, prior to Joe, it was me, we selected Anchor. We terminated contract with a prior company and in favor of Anchor because Anchor's lead person was is a former Department of Ecology project manager. And we selected Anchor because of the expertise that they had and knowledge of the process. We've gone through, you're at change order 4. We could be at change order 8. So at least they're pushing. I think you're there. I'm hoping you're there.
From what I got from Anchor and again with Wilson, they are most definitely solid that we can come out of the ground and start, even though DOE has not given me a formal letter.
On June 1.
Yeah.
Okay, but how long now do they think it's
Okay.
gonna take?
That's the thing, it'll be August. They review them twice a year, 6 months out.
That's a fact.
So the next step is a 30-day review, and then we get our letter. Because you have to post it for general public for comment.
Okay, this isn't necessarily the finance committee's purview, but.
In support of the finance committee's approving change order 4 as requested, the county has given permission to proceed. water district has given permission?
We will have a meeting, Monday out at site to start looking at things.
If the two regulatory agencies locally that control are approving this work activity, and we already know that the analysis has been completed on the water last year, all 4 quarters, past the water samples were below limited sensitivity, were accepted, our risk is extremely low. We're looking at a regulatory
I get
step
that.
process.
I get that, I just, you don't know what you don't know. And that's what
I agree. Our risk profile is low.
So does that mean you're gonna start construction on June first, or are you gonna wait for the letter?
Can we wait for the letter? I mean, there's a lot of work. that
Never
needs
get
to
her
be
out.
done.
Yeah, I don't think we get it out of the ground and get it completed at that point,
You're not gonna be up this year if we can't start in June.
more or less. It'll be hard to get excavated, get it to come out of the ground, and it'll be tight. 'Cause I don't know when I'm gonna get it in August. They
Yeah, you
just said
could
in
get it
August.
at the beginning, you could get it in the 31st.
Exactly.
But the two controlling agencies that issue building permits
Said, gave us permission.
gave you permits.
Mhm.
So regulatory agencies that control the permits for construction have authorized your work, knowing that you do not have your final letter.
Yes, correct.
But they also know that you have received all your analysis and that the government agency that controls the analysis acknowledged you were clear on water.
Yes. It's just the final determination
Okay,
letter.
so given that understanding, that's the basis on which we are approving this is
To get the
that-
finals.
To get the final, what we think now is the final approval, or the final amount of money to get the approval
To
letter.
close this
To
project.
close this project out completely,
Completely.
Call
after
question.
30 years. Are there any other questions? No? All right, those in favor? Unanimous. You
Yeah.
have to have some.
Tiger by the tail, buddy.
faith.
But I think all your ducks are in the right row.
Always some in the governance. Government data.
Okay, Barn 7.
Barn 7 and Rotunda Foundations. The request is for $41,572 for allocation from the roads. With a contingency, the total number will be $51,072.30
For both?
for both. This will clean up both of those areas.
So when you say clean up,
We will.
the question I have is what does that look like? I know we're taking the foundations out of the ground.
I know we had a meeting this morning, or this afternoon with PMW. There will be grass and stuff put out here. The rotunda we didn't really talk about, but I would push for grass as well at the top of that hill. I don't think you put anything hard in there. It's up there by the mailboxes, would be a nice area to put grass in.
And that's not it, that cost is not. in.
Also, it would be permit, this is just the final grades.
It's actually in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
This leaves it in a finished state.
finished state.
So,
But not water.
no, it
They
leaves
they
it-
added that in.
It
Oh,
leaves
but
us-
not water.
They
Not
said,
water.
Yes,
they
but
said,
not
we'll
water.
plant it, but we won't water it.
Yeah, we will water. Yeah, we have to water.
Bring your watering can.
I just thought that was weird
Yeah,
to
that is
add in.
funny, yeah, but hey. All right, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to start the conversation and make a motion to approve change order 1, roads capital funding request for the removal of Barn 7 and Rotunda foundations, as stated in this capital request, May 29th,
From the roads fund, okay.
the roads fund.
I did not check my roads fund, is this part of what is in for
Yes.
2018?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
For 2019.
2019.
And it's in there for 63,654. This project will come in 12,582 under budget.
Including contingency?
Including contingency.
Nice.
So did I made the motion, was there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, Paul, Mitch and Paul, thank you.
Question?
Yes.
From our prior meeting notes, having reviewed them before the meeting, there was discussion from Parks and, queries from Parks and Trails and from Maddie and Rec about how they wanted the grounds left on Barn 7. Has their request for how to leave the area in Barn 7, once the foundation's been removed, been accepted and factored into this?
There has been no discussion with Maddie. I have not gotten anything from Parks and Recs on what they want to do with that area out there. I will proceed forward with turning it into grass, make some mounds and swales so people can play and have fun. It'll turn into recreation
All right.
space.
I just want to go back and look at that real quick, if the committee would allow it. There was discussion in prior notes that we accepted tonight, that there would be a discussion on how that area would be left, incorporating their concerns. Did I miss that? Here it is.
Karen spoke about that. What page? Page 9? Bottom of page 9? It's in the March 21.
So, Madam Treasurer, I'm in favor of the funds, but I would like to know if the area that we're specifying is going to be grass or how it's going to be.
No, sorry for being late, but I'm here.
Look at page 9.
We're on page number, actually,
Today's
we're
page
discussing
9,
page
previous
49.
Okay.
We're talking about the capital road request for removal from 7 and Rotunda. We are now referring back to page 9, however, which are minutes from March 20th regarding comment concerning how the condition of that will be.
Cool. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
So my question would be, if Parks and Trails or your rec department manager, Maddie, who we all have actually great admiration for, if she has weighed in for how they want to use that area, and if it's grass, great. If it's concrete, then we're putting in grass and we're not putting in concrete. We're coming in 12,000 under. If she's asking for concrete, should we be looking at how she wants to use the area to the association's benefit? That's my point.
If the Parks and Recreation want to put concrete in there, they need to let me know before we go. I have 12,000 to work with. I'd have to see what it would cost to put pad, how much it would, what their square footage they're looking for.
Understood.
Could we put another pad on there without getting a permit?
Probably not, due to the fact that most of it lies in the 150-foot setback.
Yeah.
So, a lot of that does have to stay in native areas, as we found out today, but, we have a drawing from P&W that I would say 60% of the bar, good 60% of that foot.
70.
Yeah, it is in the 150-foot setback. So there would be some other issues that
We have some permitting issues in this watershed there.
Just nice putting grass in.
Grass would be probably more acceptable.
Yes,
And if we wanna-
native vegetation would be a lot easier to work with the county.
I agree that Parks and Trails should have something to say about it, but concrete.
I don't know. I mean, bare dirt packed as opposed to
I
grass.
would suggest
I don't know.
that for now, the finance committee approves this as it is. If you find that they have something that is going to conflict with this, I would say bring it back to the next meeting and let's revisit it otherwise.
I would be comfortable with that.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion on the floor right now made by Mitch and seconded by Paula, for $51,072, and that is $12,000 under our budget for this year. So-
Managed by P&W outside competitive bid.
Yes.
That's spectacular.
Actually, it's, I believe it's WRS, we have them mobilized already for some other stuff, so it's, the immobilization, and they're already on property and
Okay. Yep.
Call a question?
Do you have any,
Sorry.
questions, Colin? No, I know you said you reviewed it all and didn't have any. Okay. Questions been called. Those in favor of approving $51,072 from the road fund to remove Barn 7 and the Rotunda foundations, signify by raising your hand. Unanimous.
With a nice job on our budget.
I like their bid breakdown.
Okay. And, Jane, will you note that Colin was part of that vote as well? Yes. Cool. All righty. Next item is the house retaining
the
wall.
adult pool, yes. There is a retaining wall that has probably been in that area since God knows how long, since this was probably a farm at one point. That wall has deteriorated over the years. As you can see on the back page of 57, it has fallen down in a section. We are requesting that that entire area be looked at, and we've done the fence or the wall as well as the pump house itself. We're requesting for a new roof, and then you'll see a storage shed. There's not adequate room. The reason we're doing a storage shed is there's not adequate enough room in the current building to store chemicals. So we.
Where are they being stored?
Outside.
No. No, yeah, okay.
So it's easier for us, as we talked with P&W today, to put a shed than to rebuild that entire structure, permitting wise, through the county.
Well, there's a sidestep.
So we are.
I'm dying to hear the rest of this.
We are requesting for the entire area, the wall, the re-roof of the current pump house, as well as a new shed for $62,360. That includes tax and 15% contingency.
You have a motion?
Move that the finance committee approves and recommends that the board of directors approve a SURF allocation not to exceed $62,360, including tax and a 15% contingency for the quiet pool retaining wall replacement and pump house improvements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. And how is this?
So if I got this right, you're taking 3 projects and projectizing them into one action. Fixing something that we brought to the finance committee 2 years ago, showing the failed retaining wall, which the finance committee said we were gonna pass on 2 years ago. And then storage building in that area for all the stuff that we have to store. And then instead of replacing the pump house, just taking off the roof and putting a new roof on. And then that is on the assumption that all the plumbing, electrical, and piping currently in place to support the quiet pool are adequate.
The quiet pool pump filter, or pump and heaters will be replaced in the fall. That is on part of the study that should be done.
Not in this.
Not in this, no, that's after. It will be replaced with like kind so that I don't have to go through the permitting process.
One-on-one.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be better just to do the whole thing, replace the pump and do that at the same time,
I need storage right now to keep the chemicals somewhere. And I need a roof anyways, so I'm kinda,
Different vendors.
So there's no economy of scale to try to do the, okay.
This is gonna be size big enough to put in your furniture in the winter. You have all that furniture in the quiet pool.
I'd have to see if the actual square footage of that, I do believe it's,
It's only 8 by 10.
8 by 10, probably not put the furniture.
So I know,
Because again, if we start getting to a bigger size, I start running into more permitting issues and problems with that.
nonetheless, I am aware that your maintenance manager has asked, where shall we put our lawn furniture and our winter, our quiet pool supplies at the end of the year so that we can pull them out again next spring and set them back up. And an 80-foot structure may or may not,
Oh, what?
80 square
80
foot
square.
structure,
8
8 by 10, may or may not be adequate to do that. But I do know that your maintenance manager had said, here's all of our lounge chairs, here's our umbrellas, here's our other equipment. Do you really think an 8 by 10 is gonna cause us a problem as opposed to a 10 by 12, which is not that much bigger?
Is that big enough though to handle the additional?
That's what I'm saying. Because why would you want to take it out of that area and shove it into another
Why not? I
location?
mean, we've got other storage areas and you've got
I'd have to
trucks
see the
that-
square footages, I'll have to ask Tyler if the square footage is based off of what I got before I need a permit within the county.
My point, and you raised a good point, we have storage. But once you take stuff out of an area, where does it go back to in the spring? Different staff, different people, different perspective. But if you keep it right there, oh, this is where it belongs. And
I get that, I understand
I
that.
do understand that.
I was saying that for the
No, no, I
treasurer.
get it, I'm just thinking, you know, how much extra cost is it gonna be for that convenience, that's all.
If you're looking at $100 or $200, it's nothing.
No, I would agree with that, but if it's gonna cost us several $1,000s,
Then I think we
then
need to
we have
look
to
at it.
rethink it. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking the question.
All right, so, do you, I mean, you can look into that, but for now, do we wanna hold on this then, or what's your thought? What's everybody thinking about this? Do you wanna,
Well, the shed's 2440, right?
You said it is,
So the
67?
whole-
Is that the right shed?
the whole-
57?
Page 67?
67?
3,000.
8 by 10, that's the actual shed itself, yeah.
the whole shed is 12.
The whole thing is 12,839.
Oh, got it, okay.
Page 60.
Mhm.
Got it. Storage shed, yeah. 12.8.
On page 67, column, because where you're reading, there's some additional costs in red font on page 67. A foundation setup, 8-foot walls, delivery and sales tax, bringing it to 3704.19. Not 3704.19, carries to page 60.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
The price is very reasonable on an 8 by 10. To be candid, I spent a little bit more than this for an 8 by 12 or 10 by 12 that the ACC approved for me to put in my backyard. And it appears to be comparable construction.
Glad your ACC approved that.
They did. I said that specifically for the meeting. Yeah, they did approve it.
I don't think that's a matter for the finance.
Yeah, I don't
Here.
Let's move on.
Yes.
My point is that your price is reasonable. I don't think, I asked if it was thought out enough for more than just your chemicals. The retaining wall,
Yes.
I would vote for right now. Roof replacement right now. I think that's a very clever strategy. I commend you on that. The shed is where I asked the question. I would like to amend it to say that we ask that they proceed with finding out what the additional cost would be to increase the shed size to be able to handle the storage of their supplies. And if it's not a significant cost increase, that they ensure that the storage, new shed, handle both their chemicals and the quiet pool supplies, so they stay there over the winter.
Mayor,
That's an
so may I have a suggestion?
Yes.
There's $8,132 of contingency in this project. Is that a sufficient amount of money to be able to make this improvement as you suggested without making an amendment to the motion?
Unless you encounter other activities inside the project scope that would demand your use of contingency, I am adding new scope. And so your contingency is for existing scope.
Would you just like to add a dollar figure onto the motion?
I'd be willing to do that.
What's your dollar figure? What do you feel?
First of all, before we add it all, is a 10 by 12 going to do it? I mean, I don't have any idea how much
Square.
furniture there is, and
It's stackable stuff.
Stackable stuff.
so are we talking these?
I'd have to look and see what put everything in a pile and figure out what the footages would be.
Get your tape measure out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
figure it out and measure it up from
And
there.
that's gonna include chairs,
Chairs.
tables, lawn chairs, umbrellas,
To be able to figure out. Yeah.
$1,000 is my number.
1,000 extra.
I would say that your shed at 24 to go up to the next size up, $1,000 makes sense to me.
If it's only if you're asking for 1,000, why don't we just use it as contingency and come back if we need more?
Well, I think his point is, we need to
That would
add
be
in the
just-
scope.
I'm adding
Can
new
can
scope.
we just amend it so we
Let's
can
just
just amend it?
Just amend it.
Yeah,
All
just
right,
amend
so
it so
let's
that.
just amend it, okay, so the
It's not that great
amendment
an
is to change the size of the shed to 10 by 12.
Up to.
To a size necessary.
Up to 10 by 12. Let's just say up to 10 by 12, he knows it's for that. And make the amount 63,360,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Paul, second. Okay. Discussion.
Do we need a fence around the pump house?
Yes. Yeah, I would put it around for security reasons. It's gonna be, it's around the pump house now, so it's gonna be, we're gonna kind of butt this thing right up to each other.
Do you have like a razor blade around the top of it or something to what, for security?
No, it's gotta be, I gotta keep it, I can't rebuild, it would be nice to go in and rebuild that whole footprint. That's gonna take some permitting.
What
So-
footprint are we talking?
The existing pump house. It would be nice to be able to just go and build one structure.
The entire adult center is within the shoreline exemption. So you have to have a shoreline exemption for him to do anything within that area. And
6 months minimum.
I don't even know if new construction is allowed.
Yeah, I don't think, so the way to get around this to get the storage is to go put a shed and butt it right up to each other.
And the shed doesn't have a pad, or is it
It will be
just-
on gravel, it'll be on gravel.
Perfect, okay.
But what's that gonna do with the fence?
Fencing will go around it.
You're gonna wrap the fence.
Yeah. we'll incorporate that right into the existing, the fence will brace.
Fence around it now,
Yeah.
we're just gonna go ahead and wrap the fence
That'll
around.
keep people out of there.
That's the idea,
The idea.
I'm supposed.
Or we could trap them in if that was.
I've heard of mouse traps, this would be interesting.
It's, yeah, because it's $4,000, I don't even know what it looks like, so just wanna make sure we need it, I would assume we
But
did.
it's going to
since
be
it's in there, but since we're asking the
something
question.
different than what's around barn 7, for instance.
It'll be whatever fence we have there right now, it'll be put chain link, it'll be in kind, it'll be right around it.
So when you put in your retaining wall, they're gonna have to go ahead and take the fence down, put the retaining wall back in, put the fence back up,
Yep.
and then that fence would like equal going around. So are they going to put up new fence, or are you gonna do the failure I did, which was think that you can use the old fence, and of course they're gonna take it out, it's gonna get bent up and beat up, and you're not gonna want it.
I'm gonna use a new fence.
You're a smarter lad. You're a smart lad.
Do we get
I
this-
repurpose a lot of stuff that,
Do we
I've
get-
tried to repurpose chain link,
Do-
it doesn't do well.
Do we get salvage on the chain link fence of any kind?
Depends on how much foot we have.
Well, we've got the barn 7 chain link fence.
Well, that is
It
true.
has also
Once
come down.
you rip out, we own that fence too. Even though it has signs on it saying it's rent a fence, we own it. So, once you take down and rip out that foundation, you have a lot of spare chain link fence.
That we bought the fence.
Yeah, we did, but we may need it somewhere like an Area Z, I suppose we could consider.
It's
whether we
interesting,
keep it.
you have an asset that we've always wanted. You will have
A good piece of chain link.
100 by 100 by 100, you're gonna have 300 linear feet of chain link fence.
Yeah, probably.
Fence my yard.
Yeah, Tony wants to
Talk
rent
to
it.
AC.
Talk to AC.
Okay, we have an amendment on the floor, so do we have additional questions about the amendment?
I have a different question regarding the funds, the
The
CERC
funds,
funds.
okay,
So, you want me to wait for that?
let's wait until we've done the amendment. So does anybody, have any other comments about changing this? So it's going to be the finance committee approves and recommends the board of directors approve a CERC allocation not to exceed 63,360, including tax for the quiet pool, retaining, replacement, and pump house improvements. We're not gonna mention the shed because we'll just know that's the additional size, okay?
Right, so that won't be.
That won't be part of
Okay.
the amendment, okay? It's just part of our discussion.
Okay.
So, any other questions regarding this?
Why did we pass on the retaining wall 2 years ago?
Because I don't know that we actually talked about it in the finance, to be
I don't
honest.
recall ever
I
talking about it.
believe
I don't
Mitch
remember.
called me
I
at the
did.
time that we were, and I think I mentioned it, we mentioned it in the meeting, we did not vote on it because we had already made the decision.
We had set aside the funds to go ahead and do the quiet pool rebuild. And this was an anticipated $44,000 extra. It was not in the scope of the permit, and we didn't want to delay the project.
Right. And
So
it
the
was going to
decision
delay
was
it.
to defer this
Yeah.
to a later date.
Yep. It was going to delay it, for permitting and that sort of thing, and I said 44,000, that's a big chunk of change, let's make sure we really need to do it. So now we really do need to do it. And, but it wouldn't have benefited us, to have it done at the same time because it was it was a landscaping kind of thing.
What is it retaining? I mean, I just don't even know what this is.
You can see the picture of it.
Yeah, I can't tell what it's retaining.
It holds a bank up right by the pool.
The ground is raised in
Yeah.
that area,
Mhm.
and,
So you're gonna replace the retaining wall.
The retaining wall fell down.
Okay, so my question then is, you had to go through hell trying to get the retaining wall on, out here.
for the
Are we gonna have to go through the same process? Because we went through everything.
Grandfather was in before 76.
No, okay.
Is there I mean, I love asking stupid questions. Is there, I don't love it actually, but I can't help it. I mean, can we just not replace it? It doesn't look that tall. Is there a way to landscape what's there? Is it really gonna cause any damage?
I'd be afraid that, over the course of time, if the water comes up, you'll start washing out your bank, and then you could have an issue with the quiet pool. You might damage that.
I support that. Those trees will die, they will fall over, and it will,
There's a whole bank.
it will walk away.
of,
It will wash
legacy
away.
trees around there, but the roots are starting to be exposed.
The elevation between the quiet pool and the area closer as it gets to the bank is substantial.
3 point.
It will eventually fade away, you'll lose your boundary.
3 feet?
3.3 at the highest point. It's under 4 feet, so we don't need an engineer to permit it on that aspect. At 48 inches, it has to
Oh,
be
thank goodness
inch
it's
and
not
off.
papers.
Okay, so you guys all know it's obviously it's necessary for the integrity of the space and the long-term usage of the quiet pool, so. Okay.
I felt that it was important at the time, but it was not going to stop us from doing the quiet pool.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment, which includes an additional $1,000. Okay, unanimous. All right, any further discussion? Any other questions about the
Yeah, is this project been budgeted for 2019? So we have the funds in there for
Yes, this project and the pump house improvements are both main projects on our 2019 SURF capital listing. And the $62,360 is $17,640 better than our estimate.
So it's 16 now?
16 to 616.
16,000 better. Okay.
Penny's here, meeting's over, let's go.
Thanks, everybody for coming.
I call the meeting over.
All right. You can make a note that she's now, thank you. All right, so, Penny, we have approved 2 capital requests so far. We're on capital request number C, under 5. Thank you. We're talking about the rotunda, oh no, sorry,
just did
not
that.
D, we've done 3 of them, sorry. And we're talking about the pump house retaining wall, which includes, do you want to describe all that it includes so we can bring Penny up to date? I'm sure she's read the documents. I did.
It includes replacement of the retaining wall that had failed. I believe it's at least probably what, next 5 years now or longer. That wall, at least 2. It also replaced the current pump house roof, and there will be an addition of a storage shed so that we can get around permitting issues within the watershed or within the county because of where it sits.
All right, and we have added an amendment to this. There was a discussion about the size of the shed, which is currently listed as 8 by 10, and Mitch brought up the point of perhaps by expanding that to a 10 by 12, if we don't have to spend a lot more on budgeting, and if it makes sense, we would make it a little larger to accommodate the pool furniture, which at this point has no place. So.
It has no place on the site.
It has no place.
At that site.
Yeah, at that site.
I'm an advocate for keeping the materials cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, so, given that, we've added an additional $1,000, so the current amendment, we have approved the amendment, so the current motion reads, that the Finance Committee approves and recommends the Board of Directors approve a SURF allocation not to exceed $63,360, including tax and a 15% contingency for the quiet pool retaining wall replacement and pump house improvements. Do you have any questions regarding this particular SURF project? All right, does anyone else have any other questions regarding this? All right, I'm going to call a question then. Those in favor of approving this, $63,360? Unanimous.
question I ever had was, did they actually figure out that the hole was from a rotted tree, or did it turn out to be something different in the end?
What was that?
In the picture,
Did the-
I
The,
don't know.
the hole that
Did
he's got
the
his leg
hole
halfway
that it
down.
had-
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. Okay.
Let's see. Next one we have is the pressure pump and number 14.
So it's two projects, $20,000 under budget, right? One's
We
12,
just-
one is 16.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, so we're ahead of schedule on our budgeted sewer projects so far, which is awesome, awesome. Okay. All right, do you want to discuss the pressure pump? I suspect you are right on top of all of this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Have a pretty good idea on this one.
yeah.
Jacob is requesting his 3 horsepower pony pump. I call them pony pumps, you call them jockey pumps, inline pumps. What it does, the pump will allow pressure to be maintained at all times when you're running a single head instead of running the big pump. With the big pump, you're running a 20, 25 horsepower pump. It's banging as pressure comes up, it's
On every head.
every head, every joint, everything. This maintains pressure, allows a single head or a couple heads to run at one time instead of kicking on the big system. The pump is 26 years old, and it was in part of the surf stuff that was approved for his replacement throughout the year. He thought the pump would go longer, pump didn't make it. So this is for everything. This will be the pump, all the electrical work, and a contingency of 3%.
Do you have a motion?
Oh, so moved.
Okay, so Penny, and a second? Second. Paula. Okay, discussion.
We have one bid?
Yeah, this is the pump systems that we use currently for all the other work that we have with irrigation.
These are the ones we have the right equipment.
So the question that I have is, what I noticed in the request is that there's varying percent contingencies in these requests. And can you enlighten me as to why 3% is good versus what we normally would say 10% or something like that?
The scope of work for the electrical is the only thing that really is in that. The pump is the pump. You just pull the pump out, set another one like that.
Okay.
So there's minimal amount of project that's there. The 3% would be for something you run into with an electrical issue.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, typically we look at what the risk is for putting something in. I know Mitch has had unknown unknowns. He's put as much as 20 or 25% on things because we don't know what we're going to run into.
When you're running into an unknown, you want a high contingency.
Right.
This we should-
This one is minimal.
Yeah, this
Got
is,
it. Okay.
we're talking light pump for light pump, some rewiring.
Low risk.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
And this is also in your budget.
Yes, it was in the approved surf, for the irrigation system this year. This was one of the
This
pumps.
is one of the items.
Items that was gonna be replaced, yes.
Call the question.
Those, without objection, those in favor of approving $7,153 out of CERF for this pump? All right, unanimous. Thanks, here, we got those done.
Did not have any fish, you didn't ask any questions.
It's Mitch took the place.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right, so I guess Jennifer, you're up.
No, I'll do this one.
Oh,
Continuing business.
okay.
What everybody has in front of them is a proposed or a draft budget for 2020. This is the operational budget. The capital, and the capital and the roads are in there as well. When I was interviewing, this is the type of project that we would do for our budgets out of this. You would get a booklet like this, You have it all tabbed throughout through this entire book. The process is that we're gonna go forward, you guys get this tonight. You have 2 weeks to dive into it. Tear it apart, do whatever you need to do to it. The only thing that Jennifer and I ask, if you have any questions about what's in here, please send them to us so that we can answer those. What we will do once June 11th and June 12th comes, when the managers present, we will address right off the bat the questions that you have up front so they go on record. We also will, Jennifer and I will sit here, this will be done live. We'll have a live feed for this, so any additions, any changes you guys make, you'll automatically see the impact in the budget. Once we do the 2 days with,
Okay, so hold on, let me just define live.
we'll.
What that means is Jennifer will be sitting here with a computer and we are going to watch her make the changes and we will immediately be able to see the impact of whatever change she makes on the full budget. Both the total amount in the budget, the amount of dues per month that it would cost an individual, et cetera, correct?
Definitely for operations, depends on how many changes there are for capital. If it's a
Capital
little
is, yeah,
trickier,
very different,
but
that's,
for operations.
7,250 changes,
that's gonna be, that's.
plus or minus.
So when you say see it live, or we.
We'll have it up on the screen.
Got it.
We'll put it right up there.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
Okay.
We'll actually,
Very nice.
Paula and I actually walked through this process and it was amazing. It was
Really
very, I have to say Jennifer has done a phenomenal job putting together an extreme amount of detail. I think some of us are overwhelmed by the amount of detail because we're so unused to it. And I think we may need some help in summarizing some of these at some point in time, but for now, yeah.
But,
You know, deer in the headlights, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Going forward, what you have in there is a cover letter, there's an index, and then the actual budget with all the supporting documentation in there. When, like I said, when we get done on June 12th, we will have a budget that Finance Committee will be sending to the Board of Directors. At that point, any changes that have been made, we will put that in a cover letter that will come from the treasurer. I have to assume that's how it comes up from finance to the board with the changes that they have made with the new budget. When it goes to the full board, it will be exactly the same way. The only thing I'll ask is I need your books back after finance because we'll repurpose these to the
Not
board.
tonight, though.
Not tonight, when we're done,
We're talking about once we have made all of our.
Once you've made all your changes after June 12th, we will make the changes in this package. We will put a new cover letter with the changes that we have made here in this group with the manager. That will be on the cover page with the new budget. The board will get that. At that point in time, we'll go live again when we sit down with the board again, seeing any changes. At that point, the board can add or delete whatever they so choose at that point. It will be exactly the same way. So when we are done with the board presentation, with the managers, you will see what your budget will be in real time.
I don't have any questions about that. It sounds like a great process and one that we've aspired to have for many years. And the question I have is, I'm not clear about what the whole process is and when does community members get a chance to say something, input? How do they get a chance to say something and input? And I'm presuming that comes from the board, that schedule and process comes from the board, and I'm not.
I don't, you know, what's been your experience on that? Because we didn't talk about,
My
I mean, we absolutely want community input, definitely.
The
but
experience
how
is
do you
that-
plan to handle
Well, the experience that I had out east is a little different. Once we got done with the board, it was presented to the membership. They had 30 days. And then it was, we had a community budget review, middle of December, and then the following week the board voted on the budget, passed the budget. We have to have this, the dates, no matter, Jennifer, everything has to be out. We go the 29th, correct? Is that what?
Everything has to be mailed at the latest by the Saturday, the 21st, so the board is gonna vote.
21st
Of
of
September.
September, got it, okay.
So the board's gonna vote the 29th of August.
Okay.
So,
So, yeah, no, I agree. We
It's
have
an
to
open
have,
question then, because I'm presuming that we
What
need
is-
some kind of input, and
yes,
some kind of
absolutely,
conversation,
absolutely.
questions.
Yes, you know, in the past, we've had town halls, but usually it's,
I thought there was one on next.
There are two TBDs to
Yeah.
be determined, usually they're in August.
yeah, those are often after the budget's approved, however, and then we discuss them. It's not necessarily to provide input. I think
yeah.
we need, I mean, the members are absolutely invited to attend, the June 11 and 12, but I don't know if that's gonna be a tight schedule. What would be a more appropriate?
So, but then there's a June 11 and 12, is that to the finance?
That's the
committee?
finance
And
committee.
just finance committee?
Just finance.
And when's the presentation to the board?
The 10th and 11th of July.
About a month later. So we have a month in there.
We have actually, yeah, we have.
Actually 2 months by the time
So-
we actually approve it. So, but we haven't identified a process.
We haven't identified, a date where you have a town hall.
Yeah.
When did you typically have those?
The
Were they
town halls,
weekdays, were they
honestly,
weekends?
the town halls are often after the fact. We've already put the budget together, we've got the ballot created, and we now have a discussion with members about, here's what we're doing. But it was a very different situation at that time than what we have now. And, it was really trying to get their vote to approve all of these things, so there was an explanation as to what was being done. I think this time, before the board approves it, we need to get input from the membership.
Wouldn't you want membership input as they're watching the budget being developed during the meeting?
I would think so, but my concern is about timing. How much time will it take for the managers to deliver their portion of it? Will we have time afterwards, or do we need to set aside a different timing?
In all candor, the managers have delivered their budget in this book. And so when this book is presented, you're hearing what the association and the managers have said, am I correct? That this is what they're asking for. So are we gonna have this meeting upstairs in the dance barn where it's projected? And members would then be able to say, I see what you're asking for, please defend this item. So that the membership would then be able to ask questions in real time as you're developing your budget in real time. Because if they ask their questions once the finance committee has already given it to the board, then the horse is out of that barn, so to speak. I love the process that they're proposing. Love to have 40 people in the room, but
I can't see that.
No way.
I can't see.
it's not gonna happen. All
I
right?
can't see trying to get our jobs done on the finance committee with all this input coming around and making changes and things like that. I just don't see that.
The only thing you could do is a town hall in between the finance and the budget
Yeah, yeah.
and the board.
I'm agreeing with that.
Yeah.
See, once we've interrogated and the members have watched it, then to give them another presentation to say, please ask your questions
That's what.
before the board gets
Before
it,
the board gets it.
before the board gets it, then
Wait,
they
it's gonna-
truly have input.
It's gonna be presented to the board on August,
29th?
July
July
10th
10th
and
and 11th. They're gonna
11th.
vote on it on August 29th.
So the board is gonna receive a copy of all the materials at their meeting on May 27th.
No.
And then the board, or June,
Yeah,
excuse me,
June
June
27th.
27th, and they'll have, almost 2 weeks to review all the materials,
Just as we did.
just as you do.
And then July 10th and 11th, they'll be presented to them.
The
And
mayor-
then
The
they're-
managers will
Then
present.
they'll vote on it August 29th, so before the
No.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah, they vote on it August
So we
29th.
should
So
have,
see, there's plenty of
once the
time.
board can then be familiar with it, it's been presented to them, it's been vetted by finance, we could have a town hall between July 10th and 11th and August 29th, somewhere in there.
Before the board votes on it.
Yeah, before the board votes on it.
puts
That's
full
fair.
And
board
when
out.
the board's comfortable with it, and he knows it, and, you know,
So I'm comfortable making a recommendation that we hold a town hall or two. I don't know if we have to have.
Do you do them on
it in
weekends,
one.
or do you do them at night? This is where I'm kind of lost, I need some help.
We've
on this
typically
one.
done an evening and a weekend, just
Evening and
because
weekend.
you've got people who are
I get that, yep.
working or busy or whatever.
So the members would have this after the finance committee. The board has seen it, but they haven't voted on it. And they get to then ask their questions.
after the board has seen it too.
After the board
Yes.
presentation.
The members have already seen it, cause it's on the website.
Yeah, it's not like it's a.
But I think it's important that, I mean, they may see it, unless they come to a finance committee meeting, or that, I don't know that the June 11th and 12th is the best time to have the entire community.
No.
No.
They can come
But-
and watch, but
right,
not the
There's
To,
no-
town.
to come and watch, but I
No.
do think that having it videotaped, having it be able to be seen, hear the thought process, hear what the questions are, be able to, we deal with this stuff every month, allowing them to dig into what the questions that we've asked and relook at the information and then have it go to the board and let them go through that same process. And then have the community members come back. I think it makes a lot of sense. That way they've seen that it go through the process with people that are really familiar with it already a number of times to really know what questions they want to ask. I think it makes sense.
Right, and this would be where I would say, let's use the communications committee to put something out to that. Or, you know, that says something about, here's what the process is, here's how you can be involved, here's where you can get educated, you know, and so you get real data, and you see what the process is and what concerns there are and what's been discussed, and then here's where you can input or send or.
To develop like a centralized area
We should
where you
just
can
find out,
find
this
all
is-
of the information.
This is the timeline for the budget process, presented to
Right.
finance here, presented to board here, town hall here and here, and, the
The
board
only
will
thing we
vote
don't
August
do is-
29th, so.
Yeah,
In that order.
there's a simplicity to that, but there's also, I would encourage us to encourage the community to participate and to get educated and to seek to understand what the process is, as opposed to just seek to criticize.
Well, no, yeah, please come to the meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
we just can't be interrupted.
Right, we
because
can't-
we
we
have,
cannot-
so come here, listen, and ask questions at the very end, right? And then, but there will be a time when,
When they can vote.
Yeah.
I would say on the 11th, 12th, and then even with the board, it's strictly work.
yeah.
That's,
I-
those are
I-
working
nothing off the
sessions
floor.
every.
Nothing off the
Yeah.
floor.
No, I agree.
Because we'll
But
never
I'm
get done.
thinking the town hall might be happening
Yes.
sometime in August,
Yeah,
so before.
a couple of
Right.
weeks before the vote.
So I think, it's important for us to let the community know that these are work sessions.
Yeah.
And this is for us to be there and you can observe, and then, I'm gonna throw this out, but is there a way for then people to send in their questions to some central repository or something that says, I have these questions, or I don't think this is clear, or I think we need further justification on X, Y, or Z, or whatever, that could go into the mix somehow during the process of going between the finance committee and the board, so that,
Well, there's typically, we can do a couple of things. I mean, we can always send questions to myself or to staff. The other thing is that typically at town halls, we can put little 3x5 cards and say,
Yeah.
here's my question, or
well,
here's what I'd like to
I'm
see
just
done."
thinking about trying to, understand, how do, we have a fiduciary responsibility to do what's right for the association. The finance committee does, the board does. So we have a certain level of responsibility to go after this and ask the questions and push back and do what's right. So we have a certain responsibility in that regard. the community doesn't necessarily see it the way that we see it. And doesn't necessarily understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're saying that we're doing it the way that we're doing it. It's the age-old problem that we have. I'm just looking for another.
Are you trying to say this would be one way to justify for our members, some of the things that we're making decisions on? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
But also to understand what the input is from the community relative to the path that we're on.
Isn't that what the town halls are for? They
Yeah.
give all the input they want?
Penny, if truly, I think if you're an involved member and you're watching a finance meeting, and then you watch the presentation and discussion of finance with staff interrogating the budget, and then you watch the board having that conversation, and then you come to a town hall and say, I watched you discuss it with the finance committee, I watched you discuss it with the board, here are my questions. And then you put your questions on the table. You're as informed a person as you can possibly be at that particular point. I believe that is as transparent as we could possibly be with the membership, and still trying to be responsible in our fiduciary duty and not hindering the board in accomplishing their job.
So if somebody had, and this is hypothetical, if somebody had, somebody or a group of people had a proposal that said, listen to all of this stuff and we think there's another way to do this. Would that be at the town hall meeting that they would present that? Would they present that at the board? Would we be asking them to do that to the executive committee, or?
That's the kind of thing that I would say, sending an email, let's talk. I hope that they would wait to do that at the town hall.
Okay.
It sounds to me like that requires a very different level of meeting than an open discussion.
If there's a complete change to what you're saying, there's no way you can pull that off in a town hall. There's no way.
Yeah.
That's gotta come.
I think the
that's gotta
town
come.
hall is more information. That's
Question
really,
needs more
but I do
question
think
needs,
that you're right. I think with communications, I'll talk to Eric about how can you communicate. Give us your input and let's look at some
So they can
strategies.
email the treasurer anytime, they can apply to be on the finance committee, right? I mean,
Well, they have, but we have a limited number of people who can be on the finance committees. And
They can attend the finance committee.
But they can attend the meetings, they can watch them at home.
Right,
And
okay.
send emails anytime.
I just think I'd like to be more proactive about what the budget process is like and how community members can be involved to understand, so that they can, either get behind it or not. And there may be some creative ideas out there that we could listen to.
we wanna hear them, absolutely.
Definitely
So,
do.
you
Go
know,
ahead.
The views, is that deadline, that's already passed?
It is for June.
For June.
I hope
There's
not, because I have
July.
an article that's bouncing around my committee I'm hoping to send in tomorrow.
Okay, because I think it would be really nice to put something together with the timeline, with the invitation, that also includes I think there's already misunderstanding in the community by what I read today, that our dues are going to be 186 next year, this is the way it is, and then it's gonna be 300, and, there's all kinds of crazy things going on already, so I think having something written,
I hope not too.
No,
It's not in my budget.
it's selective, it's selectively looking at information that was put out, but I think in the abs, if we don't tell the story, and we don't put the information out there, we don't say, this is our timeline, we're looking for information, this is what the process is, I think it's a great process, it's a very dig down deep process, and to be able to say, this is a presentation of all of our needs, now we have to decide which of these needs we're going to fund, and we want the finance committee is going to see presentations, the board is going to see presentations, there's going to be a town hall. If we can put that information out in front of people, I think it will go a long ways towards inviting people in to watch those things.
We've never been more transparent, it's never been more easy to be informed, I mean, you can watch every one of these meetings.
Absolutely.
It's like,
I agree, but,
you know.
you know, I just wanna get people out there, so they're not just in, as we've been out there today about small groups getting together
To stop the 186
Yeah.
units that have already been decided.
Well,
Yeah.
I've given them my vote.
No,
Again,
no, but I think it would be nice to educate and invite people into the
I
process.
think that's what we're.
This is a draft, and the nice thing about it is you guys do your meetings live. Something new to me. Well, a little different, but I'm okay with that. So if anybody thinks, going forward that this is gonna be 186, it might be 127, what it is now. It may not change, we don't know yet. And that comes down when the managers presents to you.
They
and
have to
to the-
convince us.
Right,
they're
and then
gonna
to the full board. I
develop
mean,
it.
this is
Exactly.
what they feel they need to help make Sun Valley the best place it can be.
Exactly.
Now it comes down to them pitching it to you guys, and if whatever we add or delete, that's fine, and whatever the board add and delete, that's how the process
Sweet,
goes.
all right, good, so you're gonna speak to Eric is what I
I'm
heard.
gonna speak to
Got
Eric.
it, thank you.
Yes, Mitch.
Nice compilation. You go to the 186 comment that's floating around. It comes from a person who really doesn't have a grasp of what our budget is. But I have people on committees that are saying, well, we need to cut our staff in half. All right, and so no detail that we can put up at any of these meetings is ever going to be able to really truly say, this is every action that the staff does. This is all the work that they do. And so to try to answer what you're saying, which I think is commendable, but it's surrealistic, it's not achievable, you'll never be able to say, you have a person come in and say, all right, I'd like to cut the staff in half. Great. Would you like to tell us, please, what it is you no longer want us to do?
Understand.
And what it is that you want us to do, because the person who's asking that question doesn't actually have a comprehension of the amount of effort it takes to do the amount of different work that's
I
going
think
on.
that's true of a lot of people. I mean,
I don't-
even my husband asked that question, what does so-and-so do?
This is not unique to Sun Valley.
No,
But
it is
it's
not.
not,
You're exactly
it's
right. It
just,
is not.
it's not,
It's
and
not.
not only that, we'll never be able to respond to all those, but what I do think, to your point, is we need to be able to explain what it is we can explain about the things that we
Right.
are approving or recommending,
Right.
so that people understand how we came to that decision and give their input as to whether they think it's as important as
I
we
just
do.
remember people, coming up, and maybe some people that might even be sitting around this table of saying, oh, I really wasn't informed enough, I didn't understand what was being asked. And I said, and I had a negative opinion of something. And then after the fact, I learned something different and realized, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And I think it's especially important for any of the new members that we have in the community that don't have the long history that many of us do, is that, here's what a budget process looks like for Sun Valley Community Association. New member, and here's what it is. And it's not some people sitting over in a corner, making up numbers and saying, here it is, take it or leave it.
But we have to.
I was that person that believed that story, by the way.
What Colin said earlier is quite true. We've never been in less than a vacuum. This is so open. I don't know how we can open this up more.
We can communicate better though, and this is a step in the right direction, these pie
Aren't
charts.
those?
Thank
yeah.
you, because, I had someone that I work with just came up to me, he's thinking about buying a house in Sun Valley, he's like, I was looking to buy a house out there, but the dues are so expensive, why are they so high? It's like, well, if you don't have any context, I can see where you're coming from, because maybe he used to have a condo and whatever, so, like, something like this can show, where the money goes, and once you can see this, you can't look through all this detail and understand what goes on here and how complex the organization is. But we can do a better job, and like I said, this is a great step for people to see where the money goes. Oh, we have to maintain all our roads. Wow, that's pretty expensive. All of our culverts, you know, on and on and on. So we just have to keep refining how we present the financial information so that different people can get the same, can get the
Because a lot of
message.
people hate numbers and they.
But the pie chart is such a beautiful graphic representation.
It is.
It is.
And I like the color coding.
All right, let's not compliment Joe too much, his ego in front of me.
No.
I was
Actually,
complimenting, I was
Jennifer.
complimenting.
I'll tell you right, the pie chart is nothing that I had to do with, that was Jennifer.
Can we move on to capital, please?
So are we good?
I'm good.
All right.
The
I'll
only thing we
talk
have
to
in the
Eric.
schedule, that I wanna go over, Jennifer can do that. We'll have to pick a date for the town hall.
Yeah, and
I just
I,
wanted to make sure all the finance committee members had on their calendar that the 2-day budget meeting had been moved to the 11th and the 12th of June, and then our regular finance meeting on the 19th of June will still occur. And after that, there aren't any other special meetings, but I wanted to point out that that's the.
And again, I will not be there for the 11th and 12th, I will be there on the 19th.
but we're recorded.
What
so
time?
we can
6:30?
listen in.
6:30. Half the managers will come in on the 11th.
If you could put us upstairs.
I'll put you upstairs, we're gonna go upstairs. We'll have one room so we can spread out.
But not
But the
during the meeting.
No, I had after the fact, yes.
You want it upstairs?
You're going to see me?
She can be on a boat. Can I? No, I want to, I'll through.
None of your business.
Yeah. This is personal. All right, so, was that the comment about the budget?
That was
Jennifer?
number
Was that the
4.
comment about the budget
That's
calendar?
it, yep.
Okay, all right, very good.
So,
All right.
I just had a question.
Yes, please,
Because
Tony.
I can see where some people got the $186 on here. This is proposed. This assessment through 2028 is if we were fully funded.
Correct, if we funded everything
Everything.
in the reserve study, in both roads and SERF, and fully funded for mailbox, so it's baseline funded for roads and SERF, fully funded for mailbox, and then all the budget assumptions that are presented with the adjustments that are listed in the cover letter for operations, that is how much it would cost.
And those budget assumptions were the ones that were approved by the board
Correct.
to be included as part of the budgeting process, or at least considered. Okay.
I just wanted to make, but I wrote down what those changes were from the time we presented human finance to the board.
Because there were some that were removed.
Nice clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great though, I like that because it gives us the opportunity to have it in writing and clearly understand, especially as we take those items off, to get those dues down to somewhere else, things go away from it, so
But that's
it's
based
nice
on
to come from
hearing,
education.
hearing the narrative when you guys told us this is what we want. Oh, yeah, it sounds like we need that, sounds like, and then that's what it looks like.
And that's what it looks like.
And those were all reasonable requests, we shot down a couple,
Yeah.
and, okay, so now,
Now this is what we're left with for now.
And this is a typical budgeting process
Oh,
for any
yes.
organization.
Been doing it with
You guys say. and-
corporations.
Absolutely,
Corporations
yes.
every year.
you always ask me for more money.
We
you know.
don't have, we don't have public input. We do not have public input.
No.
All right, is there any new business that we need to bring to the finance committee? No? All right, then let's move on to the financial statements.
Great. April's financial statements, for page 187, it's not in your binder, but this, yes. We have positive net operating assets of almost $800,000, $799,830. Our capital lease, that was for our golf carts, you can see down under long-term liabilities is at 0, that's paid in full. And then we'll have the capital lease for the gym equipment, which will show up as a liability next month in May.
Should start the 1st of June, right? Getting the equipment.
We've just gotten we got the funds last week for the equipment and
So we have the May
the
statement.
first, the May
So,
statement, first check has been
at the
filed.
last meeting, I think, we were exploring how we were gonna pay for that. So
Correct,
that's-
so the best value loan was through the WECU. It ended up being, 20% down, which moved about $5,000 more into this year, as far as expenses go, but our collections are already at 95.8%. So we should be able to afford that additional cash flow into this year. And then they had a much better interest rate, than through the company, for the fitness equipment company, Capital Lease, and then the interest is much less overall because you're only financing 80% of it, you're not financing 100% of it. And then the
How many years?
3 years,
3 years, okay.
3 years,
But
No
we agreed that
prepayment.
if there was funds left over at the end of the year and CERF, we would pay it
we
off.
would pay it off instead
And
of
there's no
interest.
penalty.
No penalty for prepayment.
Alright,
So,
good.
yeah.
Nice.
Okay, let's see, so page 188, year-to-date collections are at 95.8%.
Yahoo.
Crazy.
You'll see that for the current month under April, contracted and professional services is at a negative $81,391, and that's because we moved all that money from operations down into UDR. So it's just transferring that from operations to UDR for snow in the amount of $94,600. We're on track to finish well for the year. Golf is already up $26,225.
You're beating last year.
Correct, which was their best year. So this year will be even better.
We're 1,200 rounds through May 17th, year to date, better than last
And
year.
we were shut down for months.
6 weeks.
So we booked,
We were shut down for 6 weeks and we're 1,200 rounds better than last year.
but we booked outings that we haven't provided yet. That's why the revenue is up so much.
No,
No?
this is just general rounds of golf. We've got some outings that we have booked later throughout the year.
But we haven't, they're not.
No, they're not revenue, no.
I misspoke in the last meeting.
Oh, you
They
did?
haven't hit revenue yet, but we have booked some.
So we're closed that many weeks and we're up on,
Rounds of golf.
Because we have the 2 large tournaments, the men's senior
Yeah, 65 in that.
open invitational.
Yeah, the U.S. Senior Open.
But that wasn't-
That was 65 players, that wasn't, we just actual rounds of golf, people in seats.
Yeah.
On the golf courses, 1,198 rounds better through May 17th, this year to last year.
well,
Right.
of course it's awesome.
Yeah, February typically is not, you don't get many rounds of golf in
Yeah.
February anyway.
Usually a couple
I
tournaments.
didn't know.
He has some winter series.
We had those,
tournaments.
Yeah, we did have quite a few winter series.
We had the winter series.
Yeah, we had quite a few, and
I
they
don't
were-
think we might
I
have
guess
lost
you
the.
rescheduled.
Yeah, we pushed it back, yeah.
Okay, let's
Bottom line,
move on.
you're doing much better than last year, and last year was the best year we ever had.
Yes.
Okay.
And it sounds like our weather is going to cooperate this year, which might contribute, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, yeah. Well, the bad news is we aren't getting enough rain, but,
For what? We'll get it, we won't run out of water.
no, but a little
It
drought.
will come.
Not
You
good
know
for
that they
the
were
trees. Okay,
Page 189 is the cash flow for capital reserve and operating reserve funds. We've got SURF roads, the capital reserve holding fund, which is the 1/4 of 1% transfer fee, has $357,820. Mailbox is starting to collect additional funds, and I would like it noted that this is the only fund that we are pre-funding. So when we need to replace the mailboxes in 20 years, the money will be there.
What a concept! Break out the champagne.
what says we don't fund?
I say you fire your entire staff for planning.
We're gonna have another small mitigation assignment of savings for the work at Area Z after the new water line is put in. They estimate about $5,000, so that'll come from SURF.
Now, the 135 that we've got as assignment of savings, once Area Z project is complete, will we get that back, or does that sit there for a year or two?
All but $9,000 sits there for a period of time as defined in our contract, if I
Okay.
recall, that's 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
And emergency operating funds in UDR after the transfer for snow is at $218,849. The next pages are April current month and year to date for each department. And again, you'll notice that in maintenance, it's on page 190, we have the large negative actual other expense for April of $88,936, and that's because we transferred those funds to snow. And I don't have any other comments except on page 194. This is our lot analysis, so collections by lot count instead of by dollars. And you'll notice that we have 2,783 lots current plus 141 lots that are prepaid. So our collections are doing really well.
Does that mean prepaid like for a whole year? Does that mean?
It means that as of the date I ran this report, they had a credit on their accounts. They could be prepaid for a month or 2 months or for the rest of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Then we have our capital projects. The golf cart capital lease is closed. And change that over to closed.
So the 22721, was that about what the final payment was, or is that actually gonna be returned?
There should be a balance at 0, so I'll
Okay.
look into
That's
that.
what
Yeah, there should be a balance at 0.
Are they hoping that they'll get one more year on the carts, or maybe 2 years, or what's the?
We agreed on 2, but are we?
You should be able
Yeah?
should be able to.
We just spent some money to do that,
Yeah,
$20,000.
yeah, to refurbish seats and stuff like that. We should be able, to, if they're taking care of the money, be able to push the rate.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yay.
All of our other projects are on budget. You'll notice that 2 of our loan projects look like they're over budget, but because it's listed as one project, the whole thing is on budget.
I have questions on 30 Fairway Lane drainage design.
And you're on roads?
Under
Yeah.
release.
On the roads, please. This was approved, this is 30 Fairway Lane drainage design. It was approved October 25th, 18. To date, it looks like we have not spent a dime on it. I was curious what the status was on this.
That is, going out to bid.
Who was it designed? You're sending your design out?
It's out there with, Wilson is doing the work right now. This is one of the last projects that they're doing with us. But it will be completed this year.
Oh, so we're gonna actually do it.
Yes.
You're gonna do the work this
We're
year?
gonna do the work this year. Yep.
Okay, I just see that you haven't spent anything on design yet. All right, fine. Windward design, drainage design, Joe. I see you've paid $68.26. Between the Fairway Lane and the Windward drainage designs, we've been flooding Windward Drive over a period of many years. Are you getting a good answer on that?
Bless you.
Bless you. Are you getting a good answer? Are they coming back with a holistic plan for how we're
Not
gonna?
yet.
Not yet. Thank you.
Talking about when we're right below the mailbox?
Yeah.
Windward Drive, which is 991810
Yeah.
and 991809. Those
Below
two,
Lieutenant, yeah, it's a
those
little
two
small.
together, this has been a continuing problem for a lot of years. I'd like to see if that can come together.
Fairway will be completed this year before the,
Yeah, we're wiping out someone's driveway over there.
That's the old GM didn't do that.
Yeah, you'd think, that lazy bastard. Okay. I don't know who I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter. Thank you. I hope we all go to Starbucks.
Do you like burnt coffee?
I agree, I'm with you.
Hardly.
Holy cow.
We need to go to Woods.
Oh, we shouldn't have said that in public.
Okay.
It is what it is. Okay. All right, so anything else that the finance committee has for, or staff has for the finance committee? All right, open to comments from the members.
Just,
Yes,
I
please.
think I have one or possibly two.
Okay,
Just one.
just start with one.
So you approved the foundations removed from Barn 7 and the rotunda. And originally that got put in the road reserve because we said it was going, everybody goes, it's gonna be a parking lot
That's right.
afterwards. It's not anymore, it's gonna be grass and mulch if I read the thing correctly. So it's like, are we right to have taken that out of the road if it's not gonna be anything that's paved? That's my only question.
We had this conversation, I think, before, and, that
Multiple times.
originally it was put into roads because of that. We've just not moved it. And in checking with, our accountants and so forth, it's just where it is. It's been in our budget there, and so that's where we're paying for it.
It's just until tonight, it was like, it's gonna be parking, right? And then when you did the discussion.
Well, we've actually been talking about not making it parking for a while, and then I think the last time we talked about maybe doing Barn 7 as parking was when we were gonna do the whole parking lot here, which would have put it in, definitely in, but.
Just wondering,
For now,
because it's such a
it's
big
just-
change from
it's-
any conversation that I've heard.
Yep.
The other question I had was, I'm looking at the UDR, the Area Z mitigation, it's open, and it looks like there's still a contingency left in here of $16,208. So I'm looking at, I think it's like the last page in the packet. So I'm wondering why we took another 8 if there's part of contingency left of the whole. That's all.
May I answer that?
If you're up to it, yes, please.
I think over the many years that we have looked at projects, when you add new scope, you add money. You do not use contingency for new scope. You use contingency for something that comes up for the work that you have already approved. They have now added new scope to this work. You then add funds to it. Don't use your contingency to fund new scope. The contingency should be returned back to us at the end of the project if you did not need it for the scope that was already
I
approved.
think that adds to the transparency as well, because we can hide all kinds of projects and contingencies if we don't
That is exactly
keep
correct.
the scope, very clear at the beginning, so.
I guess,
that's the
for me,
reason
it's
why.
like, the whole part of Area Z mitigation is to get to that letter and the end of the line, so
But
to
it's
speak.
not in our original scope, this was not. Yes.
It wasn't? Okay.
Just point of information, that contingency remaining should read $7,018. I apologize.
I see what
I'll
you're-
correct that.
I see what
That's the
you're saying.
additional funds that we have remaining, and those funds were taken into account when we requested the $8,000. because
Gotcha, that's why it's confusing,
it is
because it's
lost.
there. Okay, that's all.
Larry,
Yeah, and just want to make sure I understand page 74, which is apparently given some community members some perturbations.
really?
The amounts of potential.
Oh, are you talking about the budget?
Yeah.
All right,
Or
clarify your,
90%, well, dues projection, 2020 budget assumptions and reserve study from 2020 to 28.
what's your question?
Page 74.
Yeah, all right. And the question was, if I understood correctly, and please explain if I didn't, the reason that those numbers go up and down so dramatically over the years is in part because these numbers are based on staff's estimates today what they think they might need then in operating and capital, as well as what the reserve study says we're going to need, regardless of whatever rational adjustments we might make in the future.
Operations assumes a 3% increase every year, and capital is per the reserve study. So if you were gonna bring the reserve study down to 0, but maintain the board recommended minimum in both surf and roads, then you would need that much additional or reduction in dues in order to fund either surf or roads in each of those years, based on our current due level.
Okay, all right. Okay, yep.
Please, Leslie.
Yeah, several things. The Barn 7 Rotunda foundation removal, if the rotunda, will you be removing the mailbox pad also, or just the rotunda?
Just the rotunda.
Just the rotunda. And then down here, you were talking about, after Barn 7 is removed, perhaps talking to the rec department and doing something that they may want. Will the a fence around that area be necessary if we do that? Or we don't know that yet?
Don't know that yet, but I don't think there would be. I mean, you have a park out here or a play area where it's not fenced in. Again, it's in that water, it's in that 150-foot setback, so I'm gonna have to see what I can and really can't do about putting permanent structure in there.
Okay. On the pressure pump on number 14, that is the pump that's in the pump house that is adjacent to the pond, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about that little pumping that's in the middle of the pond, which hasn't worked in a long time?
That's
It's an aeration
the
pump.
aeration pump. I can have Jake look at that. I didn't.
We
know
talked to him about it, and I
Okay.
think we decided that wasn't like highest on the list, but
No, not the highest.
it's being
but
considered
it's
for
on the
surf
list.
this year.
Oh, it is?
Isn't it on our surf list for this
It
year?
is.
It is.
Yeah,
I don't know, there is pond aeration on the surf list.
Yes.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
for
if that is-
which pond it is.
Yeah.
Actually, it's for a different pond. It's up, Leslie, by your house. That's the
Yeah.
pond, like the aeration pump that we wanted to get back into
Yeah,
service.
that's up on the,
That's
the pond there for.
But since it's by your house, I think we should do the one over by 17 instead.
Going down on number 4.
Okay. The article that you're talking about, just describing the budget process this year, I think that we really need to do that soon and describe to people exactly, you know, how we are doing this process. Who was gonna write that?
Right,
Staff?
the process?
Yeah, the process.
I'll write it.
Okay. And get it out as
Oh,
widely as possible.
Joe, that means that I have time to get in my June article, doesn't it?
Yeah. I tell Brent, hold off
I'm
on
gonna do an
Thursday.
email blast. I can put it everywhere.
I have my article ready.
I heard that. Yeah, so it needs to go out into the views, on the website, out with the e-blast, just push it out, you know, as far and as wide as we can.
Yeah. And we need to select a date for the town halls.
Yes.
But I don't know that we can do that before we actually get into the views this.
But just start with the
But
description.
start
of,
with the
you know,
what
the
process
process on the
is.
board, and
Yeah.
then there will be a 1 or 2 town halls in August for people to come in and talk about that.
Mhm.
Are we taping?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make it very clear to the members, because there's a lot of chatter about this and a lot of concern because this page 74 was published and it gives an unrealistic expectation as far as dues going forward. If you look at those numbers, they fluctuate wildly up and down and back and forth. This is simply another piece of information that the Finance Committee and the Board is going to be used in order to make the budget. This is not the budget. I want to reiterate, this is not the budget.
This is working paper.
This is input from the reserve study. If we were to take them at their word, this is what would happen. That's not going to happen. We will create the budget first with the Finance Committee, and then with the Board, and then we'll talk to the members too. So, okay, thank you.
It's a shame that someone uses that information for scare tactics to the community.
Yeah. I just want to reassure people that that is not
I'm sure it's the last time it'll ever happen.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
This is a person's main hobby.
Just add in on that, it might be useful to, on future documents such as this, make sure that there's draft all over it.
It's draft.
And
It
I
says
know
on
it
the
says,
top
but it
there.
doesn't say in a watermark across the back.
They have enough to do to think about
Yes.
making sure they don't confuse
Yeah.
someone who's, I mean, we're posting all the documents that we understand for our meetings, so people can access it if they want it. And if they draw conclusions that aren't correct, we can't control that.
So we need to explain it.
I think
We
we
do
can.
Well,
need
that's
to explain it.
What we're explaining right now, this
We
is the
can
way.
help mitigate it.
Mhm.
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
All right.
As a member, can I say something?
Yes, because you have that right.
Are you done?
It's,
Are you done with this?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
you weren't overstepping your bounds.
I just, for the first time, I think, since I've been here, the pool is open on Memorial Day weekend. And I am grateful that we are doing it that way and that it is open now and we've started early. And I think it's great that the community supported that and that the rec center figured out how to staff it, I know with great difficulty. But I deeply appreciate that it's open this early in the season.
I will also say, having been here the day, Memorial Day, it was very heartwarming to see all the community members, children, parents here who were enjoying all the facilities. They were having a ball. There were picnics outside. There was people. The pool was jammed.
So
rec
San Jose
center
and PM Beach, and I don't know whether that was members or
What was
non-members.
that?
So was A and
Yeah,
PM
PM
Beach.
yeah.
I don't know how much
Parks
was.
were mowed.
Parks were mowed. I mean, it's really very
It was
nice.
very
So
nice.
I'm starting to see some of the results of our work, and I hope that the members can see some results of where their dues are going.
I think Maddie told me today 300 people on Monday.
300
I
Wow.
believe
That's my
that.
understanding.
That's amazing.
300 people what?
At the pool.
On Monday.
At the pool?
And then,
Came through the rec center.
yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Those are some
fabulous.
killer numbers.
And no one else.
Those are some great
No one on
numbers.
Saturday, there was 33 on Sunday, and she said 300 on Monday.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing, just amazing.
I didn't
And the
know.
pool, the pool renovation is great.
Pool is
I
spectacular.
mean, it's great to swim in it again.
It's great. Good. All right.
Since you said about pool, I want to say about the retaining wall on 18 on the golf course.
Yes.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's professional, and it makes people want to come back and play golf.
Well, they're coming back.
Yeah.
Well, the numbers showed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we should ask to have a mural painted on that?
Just leave it at that.
I was gonna commission you as an artist.
So you start that, then everybody start drawing stuff on it.
Please.
And everything will be painted.
Tony the Tagger.
Yeah, everything will be painted at that point.
No.
I call for an adjournment.
Okay,
Second.
good,
I
then
got
we're
it.
done. Thank you
Thank you.
everybody, thank you all for being here. Thank
Sorry,
you.
had to